Hey, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another video. This is a paid request for Ben. Thank you so much for that. And for those interested in requesting any type of videos or reviews or topics or rankings, lists, commentaries, reactions, whatever it may be, feel free to send them either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. And this is for Rocky 3. Which is funny because I'm looking at this, I'm like, this Blu-ray, there's nothing on it. I mean, the covers, the menu is literally just Stallone punching Mr. T, a still picture, and his play, setup, and scenes. There's not even a trailer, there's no TV spots. So fucking ridiculous that there's nothing. And 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment Blu-ray disc, that's weird. So 20th Century Fox logo in front of this? That's weird. Does that mean Disney would own it? Or, I don't know what MGM's doing. MGM, I've heard that Amazon's going to buy them. I've heard other shit. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's happening. Story changes every fucking week, it seems. But I'm paused at the beginning. 3, 2, 1, pressing play. As we got the MGM. Sorry, just for syncing. Then we got United Artists. I always liked the old United Artists logo. By this point, they were screwed up by Heaven's Gate. So that's why United Artists were with MGM. I think this was in front of Child's Play as well. But I always liked the old, that United. It was, in a way, I don't want to say it was creepy, but. And here we, like a lot of the films, we start off with the ending of the previous film. In this case, the ending of Rocky 2. We had the belt, and then for syncing, ROCKY Trace. Got the Bill Conti music. Love Rocky 3. My second favorite Rocky film. My favorite is Rocky 4. It's funny, I just got a request and I just watched the Rocky 4 director's cut and I did not like it. You'll be hearing a review of that sometime. So this is actually kind of a nice palate cleanser to that. As we're watching the ending of Rocky 2, which I always like. I like the first 4 Rocky films. 5, I think the war print's better than the theatrical of Rocky 5. I like Rocky Balboa. Not a fan of the Creed films at all, either one. I'm sorry, I'm not. I think the lead is unlikable, obnoxious. I don't care for his character. I don't care for his story. I'm sorry, I don't. But yeah, Rocky 2, Burgess Meredith. The rematch of the decade. Yeah, Burt Young as Paulie. Talia Shire as Adrian. Yo, Adrian, I did it. We're not there yet, but again, I always enjoyed. When I was growing up, I will be honest, I didn't watch much of the first Rocky film. I do like it, but I watched more of the sequels because on VHS tape, I had Rocky 2, 3, and 4 on one VHS tape. So, okay, it's Rocky night. Pop it in, I watch Rocky 2, Rocky 3, Rocky 4. To me, that was the trilogy. But I like Rocky 1, and Rocky 5 is very flawed. I did it. Love that moment. Again, this is what worked as well as the freeze frame. And John G. Alvis and Kim, talked about that with the first film, is you end it on a high note. Because if you go further, it goes down. And so Stallone in the Rocky 4 director's cut, it doesn't end on a freeze frame. And instead, just Rocky just gets out of the ring, walks away, and with Eye of the Tiger playing, yes, at the end of Rocky 'Four. I'm like, that fits better with this movie. Because that's what it's about. It's about the Eye of the Tiger. So being a champion, him and his montage of winning. Eye of the Tiger is a great song, though. But it works for this movie. And the beginning of Rocky 4, the theatrical cut, works because that's remnants of Rocky 3, like each one. It begins where the last film ends. And I kind of like that because it shows that there's a link in continuity to this. So we know where the story picks up. We know time has passed. And from the second film to this film, it's been a series of title defenses and him winning while Mr. T watches on. And Mr. T, as Clubber Lang, was a great villain. And yes, a cult villain. Same with Ivan Drago. He's not a sympathetic, empathetic guy like Creed 2. No, he's a fucking villain. I think Rocky does well, and he wins, and I love this montage, the way it's edited. All the magazines, and the split screens of Mr. T kind of eyeing his opponent, and Rocky getting a bit cocky, maybe. But he's not cocky enough that he's unlikable. He's still a likable fella, likable guy. It just, he went legit, as they say it. Soft. And not down there in the pants. He lost his Eye of the Tiger as, he's got to get the Eye of the Tiger back. And you see Mr. T, it's much more of an animal. Just tear you apart. And Burgess Meredith sees it and he's worried about it. As he has Rocky, I guess he was able to do those commercials after all, because Rocky 2, he had a hard time doing commercials, Beast Aftershave. So he definitely learned how to do commercials with the American Express card. And donations. See, this is like Rocky, because he is the kind soul. He would do this. Enjoys success. It's cool that we get to see there's, a reward for success. This fame. All these commercials. He definitely got better with commercials. The Muppet Show, which... This was Stallone's Muppet Show episode. They just put it in here, made it a Rocky, as a Rocky did it. But yeah, Eye of the Tiger by Survivor. Great song. I try to remember, I think there was another song meant for this. Or was it another movie? I know, like... I'm trying to remember. I know Rocky 4, there's toss of the song Glory of Love being in there, but Stallone didn't want it, so that became Criteria Part 2. But I think there was a song meant for this that went to the first Karate Kid. I want to say it was The Moment of Truth. The Moment of Truth. I can't remember, though. And, of course, Sylvester Stallone directed this. Not the first film he directed, but at that time, he was a good director. Rocky 2, 3, and 4, I think he did a good job. He did a pretty decent, not perfect, but pretty decent job with the first Expendables. Of course, Paulie here's gotten the jealousy bug. But he shouldn't be jealous at all. He treated them like shit in the first two movies, especially the first film. And the first film, he was pretty much abusing Adrian. And even the second film, he was, like, throwing shit around. That's the thing, like, you look at Paulie, he was not a lovable guy in the first movie. He was a fucking scumbag. It's with, especially 4 and stuff, but he became a bit more a lovable guy. And that's what made the scene in Rocky Balboa work so well, is that Paulie, Burt Young did a good job acting about his regrets for what he did, how he treated her. Like, yeah, that's why Rocky Balboa, to me, one of many reasons why that was the final one. You didn't need any more. At least to me. You didn't need any more. But yes, at this point, Sylvester Stallone, and let me make sure, let me get my phone here. Check something real quick. Trying to put my phone up too much in case any personal information on it. But how how do I put it? This is around the time when, God, I miss those days of the arcade, like actual arcades. Starcastle wasn't in the background. Wasn't that in Maximum Overdrive? And I believe this pinball was a real pinball machine for Rocky. It wasn't a real actual pinball. They just used it for this. I would love to have that pinball machine. But I love pinball machines. That is a cool looking pinball machine though. But yeah, I was saying around this time, Stallone, he was not having the best in terms of box office. Because the only films that were hits were Rocky or Rambo. This is the same year he had First Blood. And First Blood was a welcome hit for Stallone because he did Paradise Alley. That didn't do anything. He did Fist. That didn't do anything. He did Victory. That didn't do anything. So I was like, well, hell. I gotta do, Rocky 2, hit. Gotta do Rocky 3, hit. And then, oh wow, First Blood's a hit. Wow, I finally have a hit that's not Rocky. Like Nighthearts wasn't a hit. And yeah, this was 82, right? Yeah, it was 82. And I'm trying to think because what he did exactly after this. Oh, Rhinestone. Instead of Romancing the Stone, he did Rhinestone, and he just considers that one of the worst mistakes of his career. That was a huge flop. And then 85. 85, 80, Rocky 4, Rambo for Split Part 2. That was the biggest year of Stallone's career ever. He had two of the biggest hits of the year. Both films making over $150 million in the U.S. alone. Rocky 4 and Rambo 2 were huge. 86, Cobra. I love Cobra. It made a little bit of money, but it didn't make 40-some million. It was disappointing compared to the previous year. That's no sequels. That's no about Cobra. Over the Top flopped. I enjoyed the film, but it flopped. Tango and Cash maybe made a little bit of money, but with all the problems behind the scenes and additional photography, it did not make as much money as the studio wanted. It probably made a profit, but not as much as they wanted. Over the Top flop. Lock Up, which I enjoy. I love Lock Up. That flopped. That's for me. If you look at the 80s, the only hits he had was a Rocky or a Rambo film. And even then, Rambo 3 didn't do that well. It did better overseas, but it didn't do that well in the U.S., which to me is sad because I love Rambo 3. Love it. I know I'm talking over this scene where, but yeah, Paulie just has this jealousy bug that's not deserved. And you ain't a loser. You're just a jealous, lazy bum. Which is true. That's absolutely true. And Burt Young, good actor. This is definitely the role he's most famous for. I know he was in Rodney Dangerfield's Back to School. He did a good job in that. Do you have a job? All you do is ask. Yeah, he definitely has a more of a unique haircut in this. I know some people said he lost the character in 3 and 4. I disagree. I think 3 and 4 definitely was enveloped into the 80s, and to me that's not a bad thing at all. I've said this. The 80s are a great time for movies. I think there's a lot of filmmakers and people that don't get what makes the 80s work. Because they try so and so and so much to replicate the 80s, but they're also the same time they go, well, that's cheesy and that's corny and we laugh at that. So they figure if we put 80s music, maybe some 80s clothes, maybe someone playing a Nintendo game, automatically makes it an 80s movie, and it's not. There is a almost good and evil morality that was kind of like a what they call a simple-minded comic book aesthetic. I said this in my review of Rocky versus Drago, the Rocky IV Director's Cut. Back in the day when we read comic books, we read Spider-Man. We know it's silly that you have a guy in a spider suit fighting a guy in a scorpion suit. And the laughs you get, though, would be if Spider-Man has a pun. But you buy into it. Because you try to buy into this escapism reality of good versus evil. That was what a lot of 80s films did. And the word of excess, but it was excess with sincerity. Even Commando, its wink at the crowd was still a sincere, fun. But when he was serious, and Arnold he's going to get his daughter back. He'll say a fun one-liner, but he's going to get his daughter back. Rambo 2, like these films, again, people make fun of, and I'm like, okay, if you want to make fun of, we disagree, I love them sincerely, but then don't tell me, I'm such a big fan, I can't bring the 80s back. But you don't want the 80s back. You want a parody of the 80s, where, get it, with the 80s, so, again, they don't get what makes the 80s work. That's why they're chasing the 80s dream and don't capture it. We have Hulk Hogan, Terry Bollea. Which people don't realize that when Hulk Hogan first entered, he was a villain in wrestling. He would fight Andre the Giant. Like, Andre the Giant was the hero, the baby face, and Hulk Hogan was the heel. It was soon after this that he became a babyface, thanks to the success of Rocky. You better call Bob Hope. But yeah, he was a villain. It's like, okay, this is a big guy. This is when he was definitely on the juice, on the steroids. As Thunder Lips. The ultimate meatball. Now, of course, Hulk Hogan, Mr. T. I would guess this is the first time they met, because this was 82, and around 84... 85, or 80, it was around that, or 85 was the first WrestleMania. And Mr. T was involved. Him and Hulk Hogan versus Roddy Piper, and I believe it was Paul Orndorff, along with Cowboy Bob Orton. And then Mr. T, after this, got the A-Team TV show. I think the A-Team started in 83. So definitely the success of this, like, oh, Mr. T, what can we do with this guy? He was in a movie called DC Tab, which I liked, with Mr. T. And then the A-Team, which I enjoyed. That went on for, was it 4 or 5 seasons? I always forget. I think 5 seasons, or is it 4? I always get mixed up, 4 or 5. Might be 4. I can't remember. Because the last season is pretty lame. But, yeah, Mr. T would have the A-Team TV show after this. I pity the fool, which he first said in this movie. And Hulk Hogan would be on that show a couple times. And then they worked to get with the WrestleMania. And then WrestleMania 2, Mr. T had that awful boxing match with Roddy Piper. Hulk Hogan was a big guy. And Stallone was a pretty short guy. And then Rocky has that sweet nature to him. That's the thing. When people said Stallone only plays the same character, they don't know what they're talking about. Because Rocky Balboa is not the same as John Rambo. And they're not the same as John Spartan. And they're not the same as Freddie Heflin from Copland. John Spartan from Demolition Man. Those four very different characters. I get nervous every time he does that. With the... You're a pretty big guy, huh? You move pretty fast for a big guy. I mean, this is just supposed to be something for charity, but this guy takes it seriously. And Sylvester Stallone was a fan of wrestling because he would employ wrestlers in his movies. Who was that? Terry Funk would be in Over the Top. And Paradise Alley was a little bit of wrestling, and that was before this. And I know Jim Cornette tells a story that I guess Terry Funk told him that, I forget what movie it was, but I guess they were making, maybe it was Paradise Alley, I don't know. They were making fun, some stuntman was making fun of wrestlers, and Stallone said, hey, you guys try doing what they're doing this many times a day, and then you have to act like it doesn't hurt, or you have to keep doing it consistently. So, I mean, Stallone is a fan of wrestling. I'm surprised, I mean, I don't think WWE has ever gotten Stallone in like a WrestleMania thing. Like Arnold has done wrestling a couple times. One when End of Days came out, and I think one when Sabotage came out, but somebody had me a hatchet. Here we go, suplex. Suplex City, bitch. Ooh. There's a little hint to Burgess Meredith, Mickey's heart problems, which will lead to later killing off Mickey's character. Which was sad, but I guess is one of those where you really wanted to bring Rocky at the bottom. Burgess Meredith being gone. Did you need to kill him off? I mean, Burgess Meredith was around by the time you had Rocky 5 because he did that flashback stuff, so I guess that's up to the viewer. If like even Stallone, at least for Rocky 4, he admits it was a mistake to kill off Apollo Creed. But just here, I mean, it worked for what the story was. But you gotta have Rocky get some. And they've even done this in WWE, like Floyd Mayweather versus The Big Show, where you had a boxer versus a wrestler. But it wasn't as cool as this. There you go. But yeah, Hulk Hogan, I did grow up as a Hulk Paulie. I'm sure that chair was gimmicked so that it didn't hurt him. There goes Paulie. Do you have the $1 million dream? Do you have the sleeper hold? I just Burgess, hate on there, kid. But yeah, Hulk Hogan, I did grow up as a Hulkamaniac back in the day. Had VHS tapes with Hulk Hogan. I think a lot of kids, if you were around, born around 83, 84, I think a lot of people did grow up as a Hulkamaniac. Nowadays, I don't really respect the guy. Kind of like what Rocky's doing here is what we all want to do to Hulk Hogan nowadays. Granted, no one's perfect, but just the amount of lies Hulk Hogan tells. Like, Darren Aronofsky wanted me for the wrestler. And the Mickey Rourke film, and the director's like, no, I didn't. I never offered to you. Oh, I was with James Belushi. At this point, Belushi had died like, I mean, what Hulk Hogan had said. Oh, I was going to be in the band Metallica. And the band's like, no, you weren't. Just all these consistent lies he tells. And then what happened with his son, and then someone died and tried to cover it up. I don't know. This is the guy who just always, he was up on top for a while, and honestly, if he was a bit better of a human being and didn't fucking lie and left when he was on top, even like after WCW, like if he wasn't so much of a asshole human being, WCW left while I was on top, he probably have a better legacy. Now it's a bit tainted. Then, you know. Of course, this is the kid they had in Rocky 2. Again, that also showcases how many years have gone by in between with how, because the baby was born in Rocky 2, and this is how old the kid is now. One day they had some Wheaties deal, because they mentioned Wheaties, and you got the Wheaties box there. But damn, they definitely got a nice place because of all that. And that's one of the shitty things about Rocky 5, is that they lose all their... Like, this is where they are in Rocky 3. And I will say this, I like Rocky Balboa. You honestly could have ended with Rocky 4. Like, if Rocky 4 was the last Rocky film, no Creed, no... I mean, I like Rocky Balboa, but still, if it ended with Rocky 4, I'd be fine. To me, it ends on a high note, and a high note with the characters. You know, there's Rocky, there's Adrian, they got their place. But in Rocky 5, they lose their place. They lose everything they built up in these films. Everything they built up, they lost. They lose all the money, they lose all the fame, they lose everything. They're back to square one. And if they're trying to make it, well, family's what matters, it was lost in translation in the process. So but Rocky 5 really hurt. I didn't... Rocky Balboa I like. I do quite like. But man, I just... But then Stallone, he knows... It's like he knows that Rocky and Rambo are his bread and butter, and that's the franchise that will hopefully keep the money flowing at box office to get more jobs. Like I said, in the 80s, those were the two franchises keeping them afloat. Because nothing else was a hit. And here you get the Rocky statue, which is a real statue, and I know there's a bit of an argument as to where this statue would go. I think now is at the famous steps in Philadelphia, I believe. I believe it is. Let's see, let me get something over here. Sorry, guys. But this is pretty much the scene where B.A. Baracus, this guy's been ducking me. I mean, by the point of Rocky 2, this is when the critics started turning on Stallone. When the first Rocky came out, oh, he's the next Marlon Brando. Like, there were critics loving Stallone. And then as the years went on, you know, Paradise Alley fit. I mean, that's the thing. He was trying to do more of that dramatic work as an actor, and partly because of his face paralysis since birth. That's why, like, you watch his lips, there's a certain side that doesn't really move as much because a part of his face is a bit of paralysis because of birth. There's some type of forceps from a doctor and hit a nerve, and been like that forever. Like, I wonder where the idea of like the feathers on the ear came. You know, like, was that Mr. T's? Did he bring that into this? Again, like a commentary documentary would be nice on it, but there's nothing on this Blu-ray. Fucking nothing at all, which is absolutely fucking ridiculous. That's what I mean, like, you spend all this money on a director's cut of Rocky 4. One, you know what I would care more about? A documentary on Rocky 4. A documentary on Rocky 3. Talk to Mr. T. Talk to Carl Weathers, talk to Stallone, talk to these people before they're gone. Do a commentary. Stallone, you directed these. Talk about, like, where did those feathers come from? Did he bring them in? Was there a prop guy? Like, what was the deal? Where did you find Mr. T? How did that come about? All that jazz. You could do that, but no, spend all this time editing the fucking stupid director's cut. This is where Mitty he doesn't want to say it, but as he put it, you got legitimate. Meaning you don't have the animal, the eye of the tiger. But you like to see a real man. But you stay up late every night dreaming you had a real man, don't you? Bring your pretty little self over to my apartment tonight. I'll show what a real man is. I don't know if this is true, but I read up something about Mr. T's mom was in the audience for the screening. And when she saw that, she like got up and yelled at her mom going, "That's no way to talk to a lady," and stormed out of the theater. But I know Mr. T, they call him like a mama's boy, but he seemed like a guy who just really, cared for his mom. There's nothing wrong with that. And after the A-Team, he didn't do a whole lot after the A-Team. I don't know if I'm trying to remember like what other stuff he did. I guess maybe he made enough money on marketing and the show and all that he did like little roles here and there, but he didn't really become like a big movie star. I think there was another TV show that he tried to do. It didn't catch on. He's hungry. See, you had to walk a thin line, is that you don't want to say they're setups, like they were fixed, because it would truly mean that these fights were worthless. So you do keep them worthwhile. It's just, as he put it, they were good fighters. They just were not a killer like Mr. T's, Clubber Lane. I mean, that is one of the things that I think about it in Rocky 2. They had this whole thing about the eye and that he might lose his eye. And that kind of went away. That never really came back into play, like his eye being fucked up. Also, in like Rocky 5, he had brain damage. They say he had brain damage, and then like Rocky Balboa, they didn't really go too much into that. Sorry, I'm waiting for this line. You got civilized. That was the line. You got civilized. But just sad that Mickey didn't get a chance to see him win the rematch. I guess that's really the sad thing about it. I mean, granted, Rocky lied and said, yeah, it went fine, but he didn't get to witness that. But the flip side is you got a very interesting story with Apollo Creed being Rocky's trainer. That was a cool turn in the story. I thought that was very appropriate and fun, where enemies become allies, and That was a nice choice. And yeah, I mean, in retrospect, Rocky 4, you did not need to kill Apollo Creed because it seemed like you're just doing the same in Rocky 3 again. You could have easily had Apollo Creed in a coma. I know it's cliche. It's been done a lot, but you're in a coma and at the end he gets out of it. Or he's in a wheelchair and they don't know if he'll walk again. And then he's able to walk again. Yeah, this is just not the right venue for training. Like, look at all this shit. He took it too lightly. That's the problem. He took it too lightly with his training. All this shit to sell. This is probably all stuff they really did sell too. Nike, got a little bit of Nike plug in there. Painting. Yeah, I would not be surprised if this all did become actual memorabilia that it was sold. Like, that's the thing, how come, like, the fact that there's never been a true bona fide special edition with, again, like Stream Factory, with the Halloween, Friday the 13th films, like someone who has all the memorabilia, someone who, like AVG and James Wolfe, talking about the video games of Rocky, all this stuff that could be done about this, and they don't. It's ridiculous. Like, these are some of MGM's was their more popular movies, and they did nothing. And they would make money. That's the thing. They would make money if they did this. See, that's the thing. He's barely training. He's barely doing anything in training. Like, this is like shit training. Like, what kind of training is this? Again, he's taking it too lightly. But it also makes a nice comparison between the, when he's got to train with Apollo Creed. Much more of a... Again, doing for the more high-profile crowd. That's a nice comparison between the two. And then in Rocky 4, it's the flip side where, Stallone is doing the more down and dirty training, while Dolph Lundgren's character is more high-tech area. Again, he took this fight way too, not seriously enough. Which then makes sense about, but this is the fighter that made him afraid, because he took such a fucking ass whooping because of it. For the first time in my life, I'm afraid. It was a nice thing to, you gotta do something a little bit differently, so it's not just a remake of the previous two movies. Fame will, go to someone's head and be like, hey, it's A-OK. But I guess maybe that's why they also had Mickey have the heart attack, whatever. Yeah, best way to put it, before the fight. Because that way Mickey's not seeing Rocky get the shit kicked out of him. So that Rocky could lie. As well as that's now also on Rocky's mind, lack of focus. That he doesn't have nearly the focus he would have had before because he's worried about Mickey. Mr. T definitely has a good presence, and what's sad is that he never wanted to do this kind of role again. I'm not saying you have to copy Clubber Lang, but he never wanted to do any type of like badass villain type because the A-Team was so popular, and with kids, it's like, well, I need to do something for kids. But he worked well as a villain. He had the intensity. He had a good presence to him. He had a good look to him. And there's Carl Weathers, the man. Guy deserved a lot more work that he got. I mean, he did this in Rocky 4, Action Jackson. There's another one he did that was, it's a movie, Fortune Dane or something. It's like, but it was like a pilot for a TV show. Predator, of course. But yeah, this is a guy that deserved a lot more than he got. It was cool to see him on The Mandalorian. Very cool he got to be on that. But this is a guy that deserved a lot more starring roles, Carl Weathers. Underrated actor, underrated talent. Again, just throwing people all the way. Left, down, center. And yeah, now that I think of it, this is 1982. This is such a crazy year for movies. I mean, you look at sci-fi. This is around the same time, same time frame, same year. You got John Carpenter's The Thing. You got Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. You got Tron. You got Blade Runner. You got Conan the Barbarian. Like, you had a crazy, like, think of just that alone, along with Rocky 3. You compare that to today, to this year? What, Shang-Chi? Black Widow? All that shit? But in a way, you say it gave him a little bit of an out as to like why he got such a good ass beating because he was worried about Mitty. Maybe that wasn't intentional, but you could look into that as well. And you're able to get the rematch, and I wonder if that technically means that could Mr. T get a rematch? 1-for-1. Let's go for 3. I won 1, you won 1. Let's see who gets 2 out of 3. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, when I saw this, it was a 3. Again, taped on a VHS tape. Rocky 2, 3, and 4. Ah, yes, Apollo Creed there. That would have been a cool fight. Now think about that. Apollo Creed versus Clubber Lang. That would have been pretty cool. Again, that would have been a cool fight. Can you imagine that? Apollo Creed versus Clubber Lang. And that's the thing, is that Mr. T just has, you know, as Clubber Lang, the tenacity and strength that just really go at him and not relent. Which then Stallone takes advantage of that at the end. A little rope-a-dope. You didn't tie. You didn't tie. Damn, we're already 43 minutes in. Wow. So we have like less than an hour left. Damn. About like 55 minutes left. Yeah, you see the way he's not looking at Mr. T. He's worried about Mickey, but he's also a bit of fear. And Stallone was in good shape in this. Probably the best shape he was in, though, was probably around the era of Rambo 2 and Rocky 4. That I would say is the most cut, the most in shape he was, but still pretty damn good in shape in here, too. And I still maintain these are the best boxing scenes in movies are in the Rocky films. And I would say, I mean, Rocky 4 is my favorite, but this, the end fight, is probably my favorite fight. Although Rocky 4 is a close second. Like, Rocky 4, I love just what people make fun of. The whole music video, the soundtrack. Oh, it's one long music video, but that's what I love about Rocky 4. To me, it's energy, and I love the soundtrack. I love the Ivan Drago, and the theatrical cut as the intimidating force. Ooh, just these hard-hitting punches. I think he's already cut him up. Yeah, he just did knock the fuck out. You say you need Mick, but what's he gonna do? But I will say that's kind of commendable for Stallone, is to make Rocky have a, how do I put it, a bit weak if you think about it. Where this is your main character, your title character, and he is scared. This really is, he's scared out of his mind. That's the thing with Rocky. He even admits that later on. Now, the thing back in the day is that you still have this entertainment escapism, but you still have this actor mentality. I thought they fit very well in the 80s mentality, in the 80s aesthetic. Where, you know, Stallone thought of himself as an actor, and it worked well in the 80s. Well, I don't make entertainment, but you have this nice nice bit of slow-mo. Yeah, just gets knocked the fuck. Like I say, he just was not ready for this fight. And that's the thing, is not only did he get knocked out, he got knocked out so quick, too. Like, so quick. Like, you think about the fight he did with the Apollo Creed, he got knocked out in the second round. Like, you get knocked out by a guy, and then second round, I mean, it's not like the 7th or 8th or 10th round, the second round. I like these pushes to Apollo Creed to kind of give us a little inclination for later on. Oh, that's right. Adrian was back there with Mickey, so she didn't see that either. The whole beating down. That was actually the right idea because number one, to have someone stay with Mickey, and number two, she probably would have told Paulie throw in the towel. Yeah, it's over. I got my ass knocked down the second round. And you see Mickey is crying, and you don't know if he's crying because he knows he's dying. He's crying because he knows Rocky lost and he feels bad for him, or I mean, he says, "Yeah, we did it," but does Mickey truly believe that he did it? Or maybe he really does believe it, and he's like, "What I did was worth it," and I think on the franchise, maybe this is the only death you really needed. But then it just became kind of a running theme, like Rocky 4, Apollo Creed dies. Rocky 5, his career died. Rocky Balboa, Adrian's dead. Then Creed, I think there's a, Paulie has a grave. So Paulie died. In Creed 3, they're doing, do not, I could be wrong, could be absolutely wrong, but I'm just saying don't be surprised if by Creed 3 Rocky's dead. He may not, because I said over Creed 2 he didn't. I'm just saying, do not be surprised if that happens. Do not be surprised. But again, this works well for this movie. Because they wanted to give at least a little bit of an emotional core, this being it. And Bill Conti's work, great job on the movies. Although my favorite score is actually Vince DiCola and Rocky 4. That's actually my favorite score of the Rocky films. Same with the soundtrack, but it's still a good score. Man, his bruises got bruises. His fucking bruises have bruises upon bruises. And then I have kids called Bruises. One called Bruce, one called Is. Bruise is. Shit. As Chris Tucker would say, you got knocked the fuck out. But, Again, Rocky 1, good movie. Rocky 2, worthy sequel. Doesn't get talked about much. When it came out, people were like, yeah. But I actually rather enjoy it. I love, like, him trying to do commercials like Beast Aftershave. I thought that was at first funny, but then sad. And it goes to the ploy of what do you do after your 15 minutes of fame is over. And yeah, the beautiful ending. In this one, I love the Clubber Lane villain. I love that he works with Apollo Creed. I thought that was a great twist on it. Him and Apollo Creed working together. Like I said, Rocky 4, I love the whole music video. That's like absolutely 80s sensibility. And I sincerely enjoy that. I do. This is a bit where he's gonna go by the statue and fuck this fucking statue! Well, at least you got your money, you're rich. Nah, I'm just, I know. Just Stallone, I wish you would just stop when you're well enough ahead. Rambo 4, Rocky Balboa. If that's the case, just end it. Oh, Rambo 5. Now he wants to do a Rambo 6. Creed 2. Now you're doing a Creed 3. Granted, they own it now, so they can do whatever they want. It's no longer Stallone's franchise. For all I know, they could have the son of Creed. Like, this new Creed, his son or his daughter. It'll be his daughter next. This new Creed will have a daughter, and daughter will be. You gotta have a female Rocky. You know, I wouldn't be surprised. Would not be surprised. But yeah, for MGM United Artists, these were definitely big hits for them. And let's see, United Artists, I'm trying to remember when Heaven's Gate came out. When the hell did Heaven's Gate come out? Because Heaven's Gate is a film by Michael Cimino, the director of The Deer Hunter, and that was around 1980 or so. That came out and it crippled United Artists. They spent so much money because they thought, well, it's the director of this Oscar-winning movie. We have his next film. And it just was a huge flop and just crippled the studio. And I think that's why afterward they were with MGM. That's the thing when you see movies like from 80 to 82. There's still 80s, but there's a little bit left of that 70s sensibility. It's kind of like the 90s. When you get to 92, maybe 93, there's still a little bit of that 80s sensibility. Because they go from 1990, 1993, you have Hard Target, Cliffhanger, Last Action Hero, what was it, early Steven Seagal, Out for Justice, you got The Perfect Weapon, you got the first two Ninja Turtle films. They're 90s, but they have a little bit of that 80s left. It's kind of like the first couple years have that little ether of the previous decade. And then once you get into 85 with Rocky 4, then it's full on 80s. Yeah, The Edge. Sorry, I'm listening to the dialogue. No, you didn't look hungry. Yeah, that Eye of the Tiger, man. The Edge. And the best way to get it back is go back to the beginning. And that was kind of a cool idea. Like, we would win it back together. And that's the thing, like Rocky 4, if you want the direction that maybe it was Carl Weathers in a wheelchair, you'd have the Carl Weathers story where he's frustrated, he's in a wheelchair, and all this bullshit, but at the same time, he's mad that he's stuck here and he wants to do it, but then he helps Rocky, and you have some really good conversations coming into that. And then, like, there's a lot of other, if you just had Carl Weathers, again, like in a wheelchair, he's trying to get through the snow, he's pissed off about it, and him and Rocky are sharing some moments. Maybe there's even more where Carl Weathers breaks down a bit and Rocky hugs him, and you get some really nice emotional stuff as well as, yeah, the escapism and entertainment. So I do think in the long run, you should have just had him in a wheelchair instead of killing him off. Because you still have the revenge element. But you could use Carl Weathers and other stuff. What favor? Of course, we find out later with that favor. With a great freeze frame. But yeah, we find out later what that favor happens to be. Well, I mean, this kid's a mutant because in Rocky 4, he's one age. Then when Rocky comes home, he's like 5 years older. I like someone didn't understand when Rocky 4 and 5 took place when they made Rocky 5. It's like, were you away for like 5 years? Didn't see your kid for 5 years? Someone in a Q&A asked him about that, and he pretty much said, "Yeah, it was a fuck up. Like there's no other way to explain it." Again, watch the end of Rocky 4, see how young the kid is. Then you watch Rocky 5, and that's him coming home, and the kid aged like 6 years. And they could have fixed it. Like, it could have been, like, might have been a copy of Rocky 3, but it could have been a few more montages, or him winning other fights, or it literally could be a montage of him and his family relaxing for the next 5 years after you realize he got brain damage, and maybe he's, again, working on movies as a choreographer. There you go. Rocky could be a boxing choreographer in fights or boxing movies, or they're making a movie of his life, and I don't know, just something else, and then you lead into the story. Or you just don't make a Rocky 5 at all. Again, Stallone doesn't know when to leave it alone. It's like Expendables. We don't need Expendables 4 with Megan Fox and 50 Cent. The new Expendables 4 is more Jason Statham's movie. Stallone says it's the last one he's doing, so they're probably going to retire his character. Either he retires or whatever the hell happens. He gets an injury, or he's like, I'm too old, this is my last job. Whatever it may be. They fucked up that franchise so badly. Started with Expendables 2, sadly. They never wanted to fully commit to an R rating. Expendables 3 was definitely PG-13. So many bad choices with that. They got the wrong directors. They got the wrong tone. They couldn't fit a tone. Expendables 2 was a bit too comedic. Expendables 3, they tried to be, here's this new team that no one gave a shit about. This one is more Jason Statham's movie. So why call it, I'm guessing it's going to be a different title. Not Expendables 4. So I don't know. Yeah, I love Carl Weathers. Like I said, deserved a lot more, man. A lot more work. There's Tony Burton. Tony Burton would be in the previous films. He was helping Rocky out in Rocky 4. He's a guy in Rocky Balboa that goes, let's start building some hurting bombs. He was in the training in Rocky Balboa. Also, Tony Burton was in the original Assault on Precinct 13. He's one of the prisoners. He's like, I got a plan called Save Ass. It's run out here and run like a mother. What'd I do to them? idea is like the Rocky Balboa is a lovable guy. Like I say, he's a very different performance than Rambo, and a very different performance from Freddie Heflin and Copland. So again, people who say he can't act, or see, the reason I rag on him the past 10 years is because I know he can do better. I've seen him do better. I've seen his potential. Doing films like Bald in the Head and Escape Plan is a waste of his talent. 10 years. He either could have done more crazy roles, like imagine him in Nicolas Cage's film Mandy, if he was the lead in Mandy. Which would have been ironic because George B. Tasman's son directed it. So the son directed the star of his father's, two movies, Cobra and Rambo 2. I love Mandy with Nick Cage, but if Stallone starred in Mandy, can you imagine that? Or do a film like Drive with Ryan Gosling. If Stallone was an older, like, stuntman, close to retirement, and he was in Drive, or there's just so much stuff that he could do. It is I just know he can do better. Not just another Rambo film and Creed where, well, he got an Oscar nomination. I'm sorry, he deserved an Oscar nomination for Copland, not for Creed. Creed, he puked and he got cancer. That's all he did in that movie. Copland was a lot more to his performance. But that's the way to try to curse in a PG, because that's the thing, these films were PG. Not PG-13 or RPG. But again, this was like what made the film work, especially as a whole, is the idea of Apollo Creed becoming an ally and a trainer and a friend. That, again, I thought that was the best idea to go forward. This is still him being afraid. That's him here. He's still afraid. He's lost his shit. You can't lose your shit. Well, idea where you got the shit kicked out of you and humbled, got put to the cowboy clash and fucked in the ass and made humble. That would do it. So he's doing this training. That's the thing, though. You have to do the training that's not going the best, and then you have the training that's going just badass. And what was cool about the movie that we got to see Stallone's Rocky more as a boxer. Rocky 1 and 2, he was much more of a bruiser. But you got to see him do more maneuvers, which that's one thing I wish they did incorporate more. Which is funny. Complaints are Rocky 4 than Rocky 3, but I like Rocky 4 more. I know that doesn't make sense, but I think because the stuff it does right, it does so personally entertaining that it may technically be more flawed, but I'm enjoying it. I know that's weird, but that's how I am sometimes with movies. I can watch a film that's flawed, but if it does the right things the right way enough times, I'm loving it more than a movie that's not having as much issues. I don't know, it's just how my brain works that way. That's one of the many reasons why I say films are subjective. Because I think... There is no tomorrow. He had some nice pieces of direction with the way that's edited. Now, there's talks of Stallone wanting to do edits on Nighthawks, Or I guess Paradise Alley, Rocky 5. Paradise Alley I don't care because I'm not really a fan of the movie at all anyway. Nighthawks, only if you don't do the uncut version. Because if you watch the end of Nighthawks when Stallone shoots Rutger Hauer's character, he shoots a small amount of times, but when Rutger Hauer body revealed, you see like 6 bullet holes. So he shot a lot more, but it was cut for the MPAA. But yeah, I like the way it's edited here because it showcases just what's going on in his brain. Show, don't tell. Like, show us. Because, I mean, media, good dialogue is worth it, but it is a visual medium at the end of the day. So, boom, shows us what's going on in his head. And, so, this is when Stallone knew what he was doing, in my opinion. And, the films that bombed in the 80s, it's sad, because, I like Cobra, like Tango and Cash, and Over the Top, Lock Up, but they didn't do well. Or they underperformed. See, Carl Weathers probably, I'm wasting my time with this guy. He's got a short-ass shirt, though. That shirt doesn't even cover your belly button. Rocky's wearing all black. I think that's probably the worst color to have. Because if I understand, like that, the sun kind of absorbs the black a bit more. It makes it even hotter. Maybe that's wrong, but I swear I read that somewhere. That should be total bullshit. This is where they have their conversation. Said Rocky did his head out of his ass. Did she head out ass in the game? Which, by the way, there hasn't been a lot of Rocky video games. There was one, I know the Angry Video Game Nerd played for like Sega Master System. And there was one for PS2. There's 2 of them actually. Was it Rocky and Rocky Legends or something? I know there were 2 Rocky games for PS2. I think I had one of them. I don't have them anymore. They're kind of a cool idea, but I'm surprised there wasn't a Rocky game for Nintendo with how popular the character is. Well, there was a fucking Rambo game for Nintendo and it sucked. And then there's a Cliffhanger game for Nintendo and that sucked too, so maybe it's good that there wasn't a... I just don't know what would a Rocky Nintendo game be. See how many villains he fought at that point. Well, Apollo, Clubber Lane, and Ivan Drago. Who else? Exactly. I remember hearing at one point also like they wanted to make Rocky like a G.I. Joe character. I remember hearing about this, and it's like, nah, put the kibosh on that. Just not the John Rambo, because he knows John Rambo kills, but that's when they had like the Refrigerator Perry and Sergeant Slaughter and such as G.I. Joe. Well, you're not going to have money and house and a car soon. By Rocky 5, you don't lose it all because of Paulie. There you go, he's afraid. I remember the trailer for this, and the narration, I mean, it was a little bit weird the way he said it, where all these, how the hell did he put it? Because I know the words he said, and his manhood. He was talking about being, his, losing his, people thinking he's afraid, that type of stuff. But the way the narrator said his manhood, they made it seem as if Mr. T was going to cut Balboa's balls off. Do a Lorena Bobbin on his dick. I pity a fool who has no dick. And that fool is you now, sucker. My name is Clubber Land. I'm going to clubber that dick off your fucking sad sack of a body. I dare knock your ass out. I don't punch your dick until it falls off. I don't put it in a hot dog bun and make you eat it. They really did lose his manhood. Wow, this is a weird Rocky film. Who made this? Peter Jackson? And then we get the Bill Conti music. There's really likable characters. Just makes you feel good. That's what it does. Just makes you feel good. I mean, it's this and the fight scene that people are just, they know they're coming, but they're just building up to, and becomes like the, admittedly so for a lot of people, including me, the best scenes in the movie. But the build-up is still nice too. But just satisfying with the, people doing it for real. This isn't, movies today where it's a bunch of fucking CGI filters, CGI special effects, CGI suits, superpowers. But no, people had to work their bodies out. Granted, sometimes, we're steroids, to be fair. But you like to hope at least some of them did do it naturally. But the fact that you could get to this naturally if you wanted to. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say Stallone never used steroids because, well, it'd be bullshit. But, I don't think he used it all the time though. But at least I hope he didn't. But like I say, it was cool to see Rocky be able to actually do some maneuvers like a boxer, and see a different, to see improvement on Rocky Balboa as a fighter. And this still, I mean, to be able to do all this stuff still takes a lot of pulling Paul into the water. Still has that fun levity to it. The bromance movie of the summer. This is a pure bromance. But I love it. People are like, this is unrealistic. A white guy would not outrun a black guy. This is bullshit. Come on, a white guy outrun a black guy? You know this is fiction. Like little kids play in the water in the summer. Like kids in the summer, you got the fire hydrant off, playing in the hose. Not those kind of hose, like an actual like water hose. And not that kind of water hose, too. You know what I mean. See, Stallone was thinking ahead. He even shaved his armpits. So when he did his move, it's like, oh, look at that armpit hair. No, he was thinking ahead. Shave the armpits. You don't have to think about, oh, what's that armpit hair? So, yeah, sometimes you gotta think things ahead. Of course, the prediction, pain. You don't need hurt. Feel bad. There you go. I pity the fool. Prediction. That'll become prediction. Pain. Mr. T just did it very well. Sold the shit out of it, honestly. Yeah, he did do that fairly well. But it also is kind of interesting in a way to make Balboa the underdog. Like, how do you make Balboa the underdog again? Because that's part of the appeal of Rocky's. So how do you do it? Either go, pain. Like, how do you do it? Okay. Well, the best way to do it is to, well, how do I put it? Have him lose and, no one believes in him again. Oh, it's the odds are against him. There's no way he can make a comeback. He's this age and he had 10 fights. He won, but this is it. Oh yeah, do the comeback. And I remember, got a favor. What favor? There we go. What favor? Now these announcers, I think they were in the previous films. I don't know if they come back in the next one, Rocky 4. I can't remember. Yeah, it ain't Rocky's last fight. But it's never his last fight. I guess technically it was supposed to be his last fight. Like, I'm trying to... Does anyone know from Rocky 3 to Rocky 4 what the time difference is? It's supposed to be 2-3 years? Is it 2-3 weeks? I try to, like, if they ever say, like, how long it is between Rocky 3. Does anyone know? Between Rocky 3 and 4? I know Rocky 3 is 82 and Rocky 4 came out 85. I just mean within the continuity. Within the continuity, what is the time frame? Is it the same? Because I'm like, look at Rocky 4 to Rocky 5. Technically 5 years, but at the beginning of Rocky 5, he comes home after Rocky 4. So that's what I mean, like... I think it's supposed to be soon, now that I think about it, because I think he comes home to the kid, and where did you get that bruise? Oh, a friend of mine did it. So, I think it's right after Rocky 4 now I think about it. I mean, Rocky 3. Yeah, because I just remember when the kid has the video camera. Who gave you that black eye? Oh, a friend did it. And that's reference to the end of this film with him and Apollo Creed. So I just answered my own question, I guess. Sorry about that. Man, this movie went by quick. We're hour and 23, 33. With end credits, 16 minutes. That's with the end credits. So, probably about, like, what, 3 minutes of credits at least? 4 minutes? Let's say about 4 minutes. So yeah, about 12 minutes. We have the fight, and we have the ding ding. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of work put into these fights at the end. A lot of work. And like I said, I do think they're the best boxing fight scenes in movies. I know they're not considered action films, but you could kind of, because these boxing scenes does feel like an action scene, action film going on. But yeah, we got a different kind of Rocky. Now he's staring at him eye to eye. I think right here, Mr. T realized it. We're doing this thing with his lip. Go bust you up. Go for it. Like I said, Rocky 4 is my personal favorite, but I do think this is the best fight. Because again, it's more of this back and forth, and Rocky using more maneuvers, dodges, moving his feet. It has this beautiful shot later on where it's the two of them. One's fighting back here, one's fighting back there, back and forth, and the camera's on the side. It doesn't cut. I'll mention when I get to it. There you go. I'm at 1 hour, 25 minutes, and 27 seconds. There you go. Yeah, moving your feet. Duck and move, duck and move. And I love the sound effects of these movies. In the director's cut of Rocky 4, they took out the sound effects, or they changed it to be more realistic. I'm sorry, these sound effects I love. I think they work in the visceral impact for the audience. And then when they change in the Rocky 4, to me it just doesn't sound natural, despite what people want to say. Because let's face it, when you're watching a fight... Actually, maybe I shouldn't say. I haven't watched a lot of boxing matches for not a long time at least. I was going to say, do you actually hear the punches in any boxing match? I guess you do, to be fair. What am I talking about? But, you know, I think for a movie it's okay. Just to me, it helps sell the illusion even better. And he did a good job in the first round. He maneuvered the fuck out of Clubber Lane. And just beat the shit out of him. Spit right over Paulie. Right over him. It's also just cool to see Apollo Creed in Rocky's corner. Again, that's a nice turn of events. At the end, it's more of a boxing match in this one compared to the others. And I love the other boxing in Rocky, Rocky 2, Rocky 4. But this one just feels more like a boxing match with all the maneuvering and stuff. I mean, I guess others are boxing matches as well, but just more of a technical boxing match, if that makes sense. Ooh. Yeah, there, man. What the fuck? What are you doing, Rev? He's got a headlock. There you go. Almost twists his fucking head off like a bottle cap. Come on, Rev. Do your fucking job. I love the sound of the punches because they sound like just literally dropping bombs at each other, and that fits. It's like we don't want to... It's a fucking movie, people. It's not a fucking documentary. Yes, I'll complain about reality and a lot of other stuff too, but if it works, it works. And it worked for the audience. Worked for the audience back then, it works for a lot of the audience now. You can't please everybody, so please the audience who wants to be pleased. This amount of work put into these, like the choreography, you gotta punch close enough, but not, break a nose or break a jaw. All the different angles, like in the ring, outside the ring. All the edits, like, you look at how much editing. I always love this part too. Like, you ain't so bad, you nothing. What? Why I'm breathing heavy? I guess this rope-a-dope. What the... And just to one of my favorite Bill Conti pieces of music in the Rocky films, I believe it's called Conquest. I think it was first in this one. It wasn't Rocky 2. It might have been Rocky 2. It might have been Rocky 2, but I love this piece. It's one of my favorite Bill Conti pieces. It fits well with the scene. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, this music just works perfectly with it. It's well edited. I did like all the different angles, but it's not confusing. You get the geography. And this is also go from being, quote, a coward to, no, I'm tougher than you. Like, you faced the Rocky that was civilized. Now you're facing the Rocky from Rocky 1 and 2. This is the guy who you're facing. Like, I'm the guy that took all the punches from Apollo Creed. Now, I'm taking your punches. Yeah, get tired. That's what he's doing. He's like getting him tired. Put all your power into it. Tire yourself out. So you get sloppy. You tell you get mad. See, I love that with this. Hit me harder. Come on, hit me harder. Just waste all your punches. He's doing a good job blocking. Get those arms up. That's me. More technical, which is cool to see. Get the hands up, block. My mother hit harder than that. You ain't so bad. You ain't so bad. Come on, chomp. You ain't nothing. I didn't just show this. It's like showcasing this machismo back into it. Like, you think you're tough? No, I'll show you what tough is. Oh, this is the bit coming up. This bit here. Right here. Back and forth. Back and forth. I love the camera just going like this. Like, pop, 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 pop. That is so cool. I wish that was done more in this franchise. This bet, yo, dot, dot, dot. Like, pop, 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 pop. Like. Ooh, some rapid fire punches. Knocking his fucking head off. There you go. In some of the wider shots, to be fair, once in a while you see that the puncher's about this far away. But, I mean, doing the best that you can with it. But once in a while he does a punch, you see it's like this, this far away. Bam! 2, 3, and a fuck you. Got his ass to the ground. And you had a guy that talked so much shit. He's probably like Ronda Rousey. He lost and just flipped his shit and disappeared. That makes you wonder, is that what's going to be with Creed 3? You going to deal with Clubber Lane next? Like, I mean, it's Apollo Creed's son. with Rocky. Then you have, the son of Ivan Drago. What's next? The cousin of Clubber Lang. The daughter, not daughter, but something to do with Clubber Lang next. This is probably the least amount he's been hurt, too, at the end. And that's why probably I also do like Rocky 4, because it is a longer fight. Like, I kind of forgot how short this fight was, because, but it worked very well. I think it's the way it's edited. I love it. I love that technique. But Rocky 4 is my second favorite. It's definitely a longer fight. It's definitely more of this street fight, while this is more of the technical fight. Yeah, this is the favor. Dean. You fight great, but I'm a great fighter. I mean, they worked well together. There's good, fun levity to it. That line kind of has a different meaning now. Too bad we gotta get old, because, yeah, Apollo Creed ain't gonna get old. That's another thing I didn't like about Creed, that they kind of made Apollo as if he was dealing with infidelity. This Apollo doesn't seem like that type of guy. So I just... More of that stupid retroactive shit that they do in movies nowadays. They did in Force Awakens, they did in Ghostbusters Afterlife. They do it... You gotta shit on the past to present your new future. The freeze frame. Man, a cool painting. With Eye of the Tiger, Survivor. Great way to end the film with this freeze frame. Sort of the... Although it doesn't look like Rocky's going to connect, it looks like Paul's going to connect first. So I think Rocky fucked up. But thanks for watching this commentary, if you did, of Rocky 3. Still a classic, holds up, well directed. Again, great idea to have Apollo be part of the crew. Much more for Carl Weathers to do. Mr. T is a great villain as Clubber Lang, got a lot of presence. Eye of the Tiger, definitely a solid song. Stallone, boxing choreography, did a good job with that. Has all the elements that work together to have a entertaining popcorn escapism. So, good score by Bill Conti. All the elements work together. My second favorite Rocky film after Rocky 4. It's like my favorites are Rambo 2 and 3, and my favorites are Rocky 4 and 3. So, I like the First Blood and Rocky 2, but again, some of the sequels I do enjoy more. So with that said, thanks for watching, take care, and we will see you guys later. Bye-bye.